All right, yes. That's the Gospel Sunday Gospel Hour. We're saving souls and we are liberating spirits. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Now is your host, myself, Rachelle Wilson, once again for Make Some Intelligent Noise, and I cannot thank you enough for staying tuned in. I have a great guest with me here today in the studio. Some of you may know, some of you may not, but we are here and we've got a lot to talk about. So let's get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman that is with me today, we know him as Lieutenant Dan, and, a former City of Wilmington police officer, a lieutenant on the police office, City of Wilmington Police Department, and has been criticized by some and loved by others for becoming a part of the brown and golden communities, always protecting and always serving the brown and the golden communities. And now, retired from the Wilmington Police Department, we're going to find out what Dan is up to these days. So let's welcome Lieutenant Dan Selekman. Thank you for being here. Hello.
Of course. Oh, who could turn you down?
Oh, honey.
So thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Yes, absolutely. Been wanting to get you here for quite a bit of time. Just so much to talk about. Well, let's start with the most obvious. I know a lot of people are probably Biden, Harris, Trump, Pence out. But we're going to talk about our viewpoints because you never know. We're here to encourage and enlighten and uplift people. And one thing we say may change the minds of somebody out there. So Biden, Harris, we've got a new president and a vice president.
Amen.
And that about sums it up, right?
Yeah, I mean, just it's been these last 4 years have just been torture.
Yeah.
It really has.
Yeah.
And the amount of just visceral, hate and anger and division and inequities, all of those things have I've never seen them to this heightened, this palpable. And so, yeah, there's a weight been lifted off that I feel like, we can breathe a little bit. And I'm not necessarily political, but I do know when, someone's a good human being and someone's not. And Donald Trump is he is a disaster and a
everywhere he goes.
And an intolerant human being. And it's something that is, affects many of my friends, affects us, and people, like you said, in poor communities, in people who in the LGBTQ communities. It affects everybody, and he affected them on a real ground level. And so I saw lots of my friends, my family, my dad and his husband. I mean, it impacted them in a really, really difficult way. So I'm happy for them. I'm happy for my family, my girls. They voted for the first time in a presidential election.
That's wonderful.
So cool.
This was an historic voter turnout. I mean, especially in our black and brown and golden communities. People came out in groves to make sure that their voice was heard, their vote was cast. And a lot of people did the mail-in thing as well. Either way, it was overwhelming. It's like, what do we have? 300 million people in America. And I'd have to say 299 million of them came out to vote. How about the interesting thing was a lot of white suburban women, educated college white suburban women came out and voted for Biden. Like I was watching the entire time and at the demographics and who's voting for who. I found that to be kind of liberating, actually. I liked it. What do you think?
Well, it wasn't surprising, and it wasn't surprising really because my experience in West Center City, my final assignment there, the vast majority of the support, the donations, the warmth and the embrace that the wider community gave me was from them. It was from North Wilmington, moms, and it was from white affluent churches and people who didn't have a connection, but good people. And even if we didn't agree from an ideological standpoint, it doesn't matter. They're just good human beings,
Yeah.
and good human beings ultimately make good decisions.
Yeah, and they recognize other good human beings.
Yeah.
I mean, we all make mistakes. We all do some crappy things sometimes, but but ultimately, at the end of the day, your heart and your intentions are good, and to do good and to be impactful.
Yeah,
in a
no one's saying
positive
Biden
way.
and Harris are perfect. You'll never get a perfect
Yeah,
candidate. And
yes.
matter of fact, it doesn't represent the human condition. We're imperfect. So
Right, we're imperfect. But just picking someone, as you've already
Yeah.
stated, a good human being, someone who at least has the intent to do what is right and to be fair. I love what Biden is saying about, crossing the aisles and creating more unity out of this division that was so divisive. But that brings me right to the Trump supporters and Trump himself, who has vowed he's going to fight. This isn't over. He's going to fight. Not that he has a lot of legal standing, but nonetheless, that's just what we expect from him. Not to concede as a gentleman with grace and diplomacy, even to shake hands and whatever with Biden, but he's vowing to fight.
Yeah, grace and diplomacy are not the words I use
with Trump.
And I think that he doesn't have. Let him do that, because that will be the lasting legacy. Because what he could do is say, hey, I took one for the team. He did. He got other people elected. I mean, he changed the dynamic nationally in Congress and Senate. I mean, he could just go down that, kind of ride that coattail and just say, look, I was a part of something. He won't do it.
Yeah.
But
he's going to leave the negative as his legacy.
Yeah. You know what? But that's him.
But what frightens me, and I don't, let me change that word. What concerns me is that many of his supporters, unfortunately, and I don't know a nice way to name them or title them, the people with Confederate, wave the Confederate flag, I'll say it nicely that way. They are walking, they have guns, and they have been making statements that they're willing to go all the way for the Trumpster. And then, of course, you have other groups of people who are saying, we'll meet you there in the middle of the street. If you bring it to the streets, we're going to meet you right there in the middle. And that's bad. Isn't it bad?
It's bad, but remember, people who are closet bigots, closet racists, they're very difficult to identify, right?
Yes.
The difference now is we know who they are. So I've heard a lot of, they're going to crawl back in their holes. Well, they may, and they probably will, but we know who they are now.
Yes.
They felt so emboldened and empowered to share with the world how ignorant they are and how prejudiced they are. They can't hide. So if they do want to come, everyone knows who they are, right? Because they're not going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to just, kind of merge back into society anymore. So the upside, I think, the difference is, I don't think anything's going to happen. I mean, just personally.
Okay.
But even if they do try any of that, we know who they are,
yes.
right? They're not hidden. They're not these hidden kind of.
When I was watching the news, and I really love Norah O'Donnell. Like I model after her. Yeah. She's a really excellent journalist, and so her entire team was there. And Major Garrett, I think, was giving us the demographics of who's voting, and we find that many of the Trump supporters were in those Confederate kind of states and places. A lot of those types of people were there, not all, but a lot of his supporters were those Confederate backwoods kind of folks. And those are the same ones that are going to be carrying the guns, or that are walking and carrying the guns.
Yes, they will. But you also have, remember too, you do have the white suburban people who will speak up now, who will say, no, we're not going to allow you to do this. So it's not just these black and brown communities, these poor communities, these urban communities that are on their own. That's what's changed. For me, that was the biggest dynamic change between now and any other time in my life, is that you're not alone. And there's so many good people. I have so many friends who voted for Trump, but they're not bad people, and they're not Confederate flag wavers. They just felt like either his policies, his financial, all of that stuff. So I don't fault them for that. But the people who are waving a flag that pretty much represents that you would prefer black people be slaves, which is exactly what it is.
Pretty much.
Then they're disgusting human beings, and you'll have other people of different races, of different economic backgrounds and statuses and titles who will actively and are actively defending that,
yes,
including me.
Yes.
Because I know you've said I'm black, but
yes,
only from the waist up. PG.
Oh my gosh.
But no,
Dan,
seriously.
Lieutenant Dan, you are amazing. I'll tell you, my first, and we're going to get right back to that in just a moment, because I, like you, I do know that everyone that voted for Trump were not Confederate flag waving people. They just liked his policies. And, there were some things that he did good, just his whole ego and his attitude about it. Some of that stuff just really wasn't. It really wasn't
didn't reflect who we are as
yes,
a culture, as a people,
right,
as a country.
But one of the things that we are as a people, and you can find it anywhere here in America, people that just feel like we're not going to give up. We're winners. We're fighters. We're gonna see it to the very end. I think Donald Trump is actually personifying what is in a lot of us as Americans. I know I have that attitude, like I'm going to fight to win. And I'm going to stay in it. And I'm not talking about fighting in the street, although I can do that too.
Yes.
I mean, whatever the fight or the cause is, I think that's the American way.
Yeah. Dissent is our cornerstone, right? We came here to flee being oppressed by a single leader, by a king and a queen, right?
Right.
Dissent is what has made us who we are.
Yes.
Disagreement.
Yeah.
We've just learned. We've forgotten how to disagree respectfully, right?
Yeah.
I love the fact that people disagree with me, and even some of my posts. I mean, it invokes anger, and the things I've said invokes real
passion, but it gets people talking, and we've got to talk. And one of the things I
didn't
love,
create the anger.
No,
right?
you
My
didn't.
beautiful friend shared that with me, because I was like overwhelmed. The last post I did about the Walter Wallace incident, and I knew it was going to get invoke a lot of responses.
Yeah,
and I was ready for it, but it's also hurtful. These are people, a lot of them I know, and said hurtful things.
Yes.
But my friend shared with me. He goes, Dan, you didn't create the anger. You presented it. If no one cared, no one would have responded. The fact that it's gotten that type of feedback is because it exists. You just highlighted it. You shared it.
Yes.
Lieutenant
Dan, and I'll always call you that because that's how I met you. I mean, you're my I'm Mama Bird, and I call you Baby Bird.
Yeah.
But my first when I just grabbed a hold of you, and I knew that you were going to be my friend. I mean, you just have this warm and embracing personality, and I do love that about you, and I mean that sincerely and genuinely. But I had heard, I was over on the west side, here in Wilmington.
West side?
Yes, west side. And I actually talk with some people. Okay, how can I say this? I don't want to call them all drug dealers, and they're not thugs, but just let's say some brothers who like to lean up on the left side, up on the wall. Yeah. Okay, whatever they're doing is what they're doing, right? But, they're pretty much prepared at any point, at any given time, based on the lifestyle that they live, to fire a weapon or to become invoked in violence if necessary because of their lifestyle. But I was on the west side, and I heard, talk to some of these brothers who said, and I can't repeat it exactly because we're on the radio, so I'll improvise. I wish somebody would mess with Lieutenant Dan. I'll put a cap in his, and that's kind of like saying it nicely. But when they said that, I'm like, you've got these kinds of people who are willing to fire their gun and weapon if somebody messes with, like, they love you. Not to say that we want violence, but just to show their love for you. There's not a lot of police officers, particularly white police officers, who can have that kind of love come out of a community. You're famous for protecting the brown communities and standing up for them, but you've also had to take a lot of heat for that.
Yeah, and it's okay. I didn't quite know how much, and I didn't quite know how it would change, my career and how difficult it would make it. But I'd do it 1,000 times over, for a couple of reasons. One is that it's, as a parent, I want to show my kids that there's times in life, many times in life, to be seated, to be still, and to be quiet. And then there's times to stand up, right? There's times to speak out. There's times to be heard. You'll know them when you know them, and I'm proud that I did, and I continue to do it. And I've grown, especially as a police officer. I grew, I developed. I had this wonderful community who was willing to teach me, was willing to see all of my flaws and my goofiness, and really allowed me to see, right, opened my eyes. So there was a growth and a maturity process that I had to go through. But those guys that you talk to,
do you know who they were?
No, I have no idea. No, I buy my drugs Northside.
Oh, you are goofy.
So, true. So why they said that isn't because and this is where cops kind of didn't know where to put me. They didn't say that because I didn't arrest them for something. I let them go for something. I ignored what they were doing. They said that because, like myself, they understand the power of human respect and human dignity. It's the one thing police get wrong, is they get the badge, and it's a part of our fault too for teaching them this way, and then not understanding how dangerous this is. They get the badge and they don't understand the difference between pride and power. The difference is, it's okay to feel pride to be a police officer. It's okay to feel like you are going to have value in the community, to be able to support the community. It's not okay to feel power. And that's my failure as a trainer, as an instructor, or as a supervisor, not to make that distinction. I also didn't know, I didn't understand how it influenced it. So they get this very one-sided, very biased, and very toxic view of the world. This means power, right?
Right.
That's where it goes wrong, and that's a failure of law enforcement. So when I post things, like I post, it's not just to call them out. It's to say it's a part of me owning up to my part of it. And
I don't think it. Let me say it like this: I don't think in any way, whenever you speak about the police department anywhere in the United States, or particularly here in Wilmington, that you're being mean or facetious or any of those things. I personally, and I've said this to other people, elected officials and others, we would love to see you run for something, but before you run for something, or even if you don't or whatever, I would love to see you in a position as one of the key components of training to sensitize the Wilmington Police Department, or all around the nation. I would love to see you do that, where you teach officers how to build and connect these relationships with other communities, particularly the Black and Browns, because
Right.
then now we're talking about Walter and Eric Gardner and Tamir Rice, and the list goes on. So had you been there on the day that George Floyd was arrested or accosted, he would probably still be alive today. Mm-hmm. Had you been on that force, or had you trained officers to know how to respond like you, because you can do your job, and you did do your job as lieutenant on the Wilmington Police Department. You did a great job, but you also had sensitivity. Is there any way we can get you, we the people can get you to in a position like that? How do we do that, and what would that be called?
So it's a great question, and you're right. One of the things about the power piece is so essentially police are trained, they're taught, they're encouraged, they're rewarded to take. Right? We learn how to take property through searches and seizures. We learn how to take liberties and freedoms through arrests and detentions. We learn how to take life. And matter of fact, we learn how to take life more than anything else. We're experts at it. What we don't do at all, or very little of, is teach them how to give, how to support, how to improve the human condition. And when you don't understand, you're taking from people who don't have much or anything to begin with. There's a level of dignity and respect that is immediately lost. And that's where the power thing comes in. If you see people in ranks, which of course policing do, it kind of lends itself to it. When you see people in ranks and then you see human beings in ranks, that means people have more or less value, right? Well, human value is inherently equal.
Yes.
So the people, and this is, especially in West Center City when I was trying to teach some of the officers, although they stayed away from me. They did. I wasn't in those Facebook posts alone because I wanted to. They just they stayed away from me. I wanted them to be there. But what I would say to them is, look, it didn't matter if I was dealing with someone who was overdosed on heroin, who was homeless, who I just had to arrest. Their value as a human being is no different than mine. It's unequivocally equal. That's where you start. And unfortunately, with the police in Delaware, because I do have a training background, I have programs, I have modules, I can do all of this. I don't think they're ready. And I say that with confidence, unfortunately, because what I've seen is where I'm most needed or asked for right now is Pennsylvania. I'm going all over Pennsylvania. They want me to talk to different college campus police, to different organizations. Look, I don't want to drive 4 hours to teach something that I would love to teach in my own home, right? My own hometown, the people it affects. But I don't know why Delaware doesn't
either they're not ready, which I don't think that's it, based on Mayor Przicki and reading his bio and some things, some thought and some press. I don't think it's Mayor Przicki or even Chief Tracy. I think that both of those men would be willing to have a trainer. The thing is, because of your history with the Wilmington Police Department and some of their bigotry or bias towards you, I think that is the glass ceiling. Keeping it real. Let's keep it real and truthful and transparent.
We've never done anything different.
You're right. So I think that because some people have a bias against you personally because of the past, that's why they wouldn't want to see you again in a leadership position with the Wilmington Police Department. What about the state troopers or the county police? Or do we have an issue there?
And let me make it clear that I don't have an issue with the chief. I don't have an issue with the mayor. Right. They may have an issue with me. And I will own up to the fact that when I retired, I didn't know how to share all of these challenges and obstacles and the treatment that I was getting because I'd been muzzled for 21 years.
Right.
So it took me a while to find my voice. It took me a while to be able to share those struggles without just overwhelming the conversation. But at this point, I've done that. It's a part of my story and a part of that journey, but it's not all of the journey.
Right.
And actually, ultimately, the way I see it is, if I was just the goofy white guy who went into West Center City or did some good things as a cop, it's a kind of it's a good story, but it has no depth to it. I think for me anyway, what gives it depth is the fact that, yes, the community and we moved the needle in a place that has never been moved, but we did it in spite of all of the stuff they threw at me, of all of the challenges, of the indignities, the humiliation that I went through. But I also, me well enough.
And you know what, let me just say, I apologize, even if those men don't, I apologize for that having happened to you. I really do. Because you don't deserve to be humiliated simply because you're good with people, all people. But you happen to have taken on a West Side. I mean, for those of us who live in the city of Wilmington, we know what it is. But for the people that live out in Hockessin in the suburbs in Pennsylvania or whoever may be watching us or listening to us now, they may not know what West Side is in Wilmington. So, I don't want to say it's a terrible place. It's not. No. It's families.
But but
it's a different rule book.
Yes.
Over there.
And let me share, if they don't know, West Center City is comprised of about 36 and a half square blocks. It's very small, right? But those 36 and a half square blocks, within them, really checks every box for poverty, for suffering, for violence. The reason that Delaware and Wilmington in particular has been on the most violent list for all of these years is because of West Center City. This is a place of great great isolation, which often comes with poverty, a desolation, of hopelessness, of sadness. That's how it's seen, right? Perceived. What I know it to be is a place of great beauty, of amazing families, wonderful history.
Yes.
6 in Madison is where they stood up for the first time in 1968 and said, "We are human.
Yes.
We will not be seen as less than," right? So they were the first to step forward, and they were also the first to shed blood. They started it in Delaware. It's 6 in Madison. That's where it started. The bravery and the courage. So instead of celebrating that, instead of us rewarding that, of encouraging that, of giving and providing resources and support, what have we done? We've totally abandoned them. It's almost like if the Martin Luther King memorial was just, people threw garbage and it was disrespected to that level. A place like West Center City, when I walked, I knew I was walking on hallowed ground. What we see, especially the outside world sees, is the abandonment, the abandoned buildings, the drug use. I didn't go in there saying, I'm going to fix these things. I mean, that'd be crazy.
Right.
But what I said is that, number one, I knew I was a guest. Number two, I understood human value. And number three, the way I saw help wasn't in this super defined window of criminal justice. It wasn't just, I wasn't just protecting and serving in a way that, if they called 911 or I saw some crime. I saw the word protect and the word serve much differently. So yes, we should protect in those ways, but I also saw it as we should protect them from cold and from hunger, from homelessness, from joblessness, and from addiction. And if we can't do those things right there and then, we sure as hell should know where to take them. And I'll be the first to admit, I didn't know how to help somebody.
Yeah.
They taught me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Kudos to you, Lieutenant Dan. Kudos.
But there was
to
a constant chess match
of
balancing, am I going to get in trouble for doing this?
Yeah.
And is it worth it?
Right. And eventually you did get in trouble.
Yeah.
And it changed your life. But, I'm a firm believer that all things for a purpose, divine reason.
Yes.
I don't know all their names, but I've heard stories of people in the Bible that had to be tested through the fire and they came out as pure gold. Because God had a greater purpose for them. So, if those Bible stories lend to the truth, then I would say that is certainly, something God did to you. He had to stir up the apple cart and refocus your life for a reason. I know God has something great for you to do, other than just your presence and your existence, which is awesome. But there's more that you can do.
Thank you. If God could pay a couple of my mortgage bills and my car payment, I would be super into him. Right?
Yes.
Or her, because we all know God's a black woman.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Can we speak
That's the reason you got in trouble with the Wilmington Police Department.
Come on, tell me.
God is a black woman. Yes, you're right, though.
And we should say, it's about time there's a woman, especially a woman of color, in the presidency.
Yes, Kamala Harris. But isn't she Indian or from India?
She's a perfect representation of who we are. It's everything.
Yes.
Right? Anything, right? I love it. But I think that the fact that while I was working, especially in White Center State, I mean, you can't hide my whiteness. I mean, I'm glowing white. I'm usually sweaty. I wear, my white shirt.
Yeah.
But the entire time I was there, besides never having never made one arrest, which is an interesting conversation, but a lot of people challenged me on that. I didn't have to. Power of human respect.
Right.
But the reason, so while I was there and I walk day and night, we never talked about what my race meant, what the uniform meant. We never had these deep conversations. We just were there, right? You mean
you and the community?
Me and the community, yes.
Right.
We didn't have those conversations until after I retired. And the depth to those conversations, it took me, and it continues to take me time to digest that. These are communities that should hate what I represent. Not me, the human being, but the uniform. That uniform represents generations of oppression, of hardship, of real struggles, of real pain. I would have understood, quite frankly, if they didn't want to approach me, they didn't want anything to do with me. But because I came in as their equal, I came in as their guest. I didn't come in there to occupy.
Yes.
I came in there to support.
Yes.
That made all the difference.
I think that is the difference, is that in your mindset, you really did come upon the people, the communities, as a guest, in their community.
And
that's a whole, that makes
crazy?
a whole totally different attitude, because you're humble. And so many police officers all over this nation, they go into brown or Latin communities or wherever they go into these communities again with that sense of power. Yeah. I'm the authority, I'm the power here, and we're going to do things, we're going to work this out my way. Yeah. Instead of finding out what does the community need or want, or trying to be a part of the solution instead of more of the problem. Yeah. So now let's talk really briefly. I don't want to go too deep into it. What's our time? Okay, we've got time. So
I only have a little bit of vodka left. So.
Mentally ill, having a really traumatic day. Walter lunged towards the police officers. But I know personally myself, and again, everyone who's listening, his color is white, but he is truly a black man on so many different levels. But, they have been able to arrest other nationalities of people lunging at them with a knife or other circumstances and situations. Why is it that in the community, why did they have to kill him? Why do you have to shoot? Why? Why is shooting the first thing that they did? Why did they do that?
Because that's the tools they have. And much like when I went into West Center City, I didn't have the tools to help. I had to learn it. I had to be willing to learn it. I had to be willing to accept that maybe I was doing stuff wrong. Police only have, we are trained with muscle memory. It is hand, gun, shoot, handgun, shoot, handgun, shoot. We don't have any other resources to go to. That, whether that shooting had merit or not, much like in my post, I'm not going to argue whether those officers should have or should not have shot. What I said was it didn't need to happen. There's things that you could have done that can be done.
Why didn't we tase him?
So again, I don't even think when someone's coming at you with a knife, I'm not going to sit here and say that even as a police officer, they have families. We don't pay police to get killed or injured.
Right.
I think the way I saw it, besides being sad, it's also what police do terribly, and they don't do really at all. It's just saying, I'm so sorry. Not saying I'm sorry for that it should have happened or it shouldn't. I'm sorry for your loss. Yes. I suffer with you. Yes. I feel for you. I have empathy. I have empathy,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So, but what I was saying is, if every shooting, and this is why I knew it would invoke a lot of kind of anger, especially with the police. He has a knife. What I'm saying is, if after every event we just take sides, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, and we never for a moment think about, can we do it better? Is there ways that that we don't have to admit fault, but we can say, hey, how can we do this better? Are there things that other officers are doing or the community would suggest or wants that could have prevented this from happening? And we've never gotten there. We just do either angry posts or we do, and that's why I try to stay in the middle, but I also want to be able to present some real ways to change that. For me, the biggest thing is, everyone in that community, especially in that video, which was hard to watch, everyone in that block, they knew he had mental illness.
Yes.
Except for the 2 police officers who were assigned there. And to me, that is the biggest failure. It wasn't
why can't we, I would love to see police officers, 2 by 2, in all of these various neighborhoods, and the same 2, so that they can get to know the residents, they can get to know the community, know the children, learn how to interact with us. So when something does happen, when there is an upset, they can come to the scene and say, hey, I know this family. Yes. I know these children, these boys.
They're not strangers anymore.
Yes.
So police are going in these neighborhoods. They're shooting and killing people, right, wrong, or indifferent, but they're shooting strangers.
That's true.
If they know the person, if they knew them as human beings, if they didn't see the knife, if they didn't see the block, if they didn't see the threat, if they saw Walter, if they saw Walter's mother, if
Yes.
they knew that in advance,
Yes.
it
would have changed the outcome.
Could he inevitably been killed at some point anyway, or the police had to shoot him? I'm not going to say yes or no. What I'm saying is there's things we can do. And if police don't even want to discuss that, then how do we grow as human beings? How do they immediately just take a stance and say, no, that was right or that was wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, put that aside. Are there ways that we can do it better? Are there things that we can do that might have changed it? And if you don't want to even engage that conversation, which they don't, especially
but we've got to have those conversations. And to be quite honest with you, America, all of America, the white suburban women need to come on in the city or either allow us to go out to where they are. And we need to engage in conversations, real talk. Black and white people just need to talk to each other, find out who they are. You may find that they're not all of the prejudices that you thought that they were. They may actually be humans, and you find a connection.
It is literally the beautiful simplicity of being human. We are designed to connect.
Yes.
It is our own prejudices and baggage that prevents that.
Yes.
It is people would be like, well, how did you get to, did it take you a long time to start to meet people in West Center City? No, 10 seconds.
Right.
I mean, what do you mean? It is literally, we are built for that. That's why we live in communes.
But you know what? We have to know how to understand each other. Our language,
willing to it.
Our language is different. Our body language, everything. For example, I know that over on the west side and other various neighborhoods, even the one that I live in, if somebody says, "What's up?" you just say, "What's up?" That's not a word that we probably would do out in Hockessin. In Hockessin, we're going to say, "Oh, good afternoon."
Right, and they also
it's a difference of language, but it's nonetheless sincere. So if a woman says, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" She might be playing or joking around with you. Not that she doesn't know how to say good afternoon. She just chooses to, "What's up, girl?"
So
it's our language.
Yes, but you have to have both parties being willing to be a little uncomfortable. And so what I often say is that get over it.
You're right.
Because what you're going to find is exactly that, is that we are all interconnected. We're all the same. We all have the same worries and anxieties and joys. And we are, it is our own bias that prevents that from happening. So get over yourself.
Right.
And meet people. It's often like when especially white people, they love to shake hands.
Yes.
And I said, don't come into West Center City, especially, and start asking their names and shaking hands.
Yes, don't.
Not because it's just culturally, but they were willing to do it, and it was genuine. Just like me, I didn't try to act black. I didn't try.
We want to give you a pound. What's up?
And see, when I do that, everyone's like, do you know how long I try to do that? It's 100. I couldn't even do that. I even did West Side, and it looked like I had some kind of.
But illness. It looked like you had an illness. That's funny.
But I was willing to be uncomfortable because it was genuine
to learn. And it's just learning.
Yeah, and we laughed about it.
Yes,
right?
Learn how to connect with us. We are not so far removed from
You're
humanity
not at all.
That white suburbia, we wouldn't know how to sit and enjoy the same things that they would enjoy in Hockessin. We like those things too. So we just behave differently. We respond differently.
And that's okay. And I think what happens too with all of the coverage that you see on TV, especially with West Center City or Wilmington, what does suburbia see? Is they see the news clips of the shooting, you see crime scene tape, you see police cars, you see someone getting wheeled away who was shot, right?
Right.
What they don't see, and what I try to share with them, is look beyond the tape. Look at the homes that exist there. Behind those doors are families, are children, are grandparents, are single people, are professionals, some of which just happen to be poor, but they still live there, and they hurt, and they're scared. And if when you start to broaden that vision and start to see that, that's when you start to feel that empathy. Right. And that's what I think I hope, changes. And if I can play some role in that.
You know
That's
what
where
I
I'm
would
from.
love for us to do if we had the money and the resources and the backing of the government to actually help us to create. I'm coming up with this idea just now as I'm sitting here with you. Create a racial connection where we take 10 women from Hockessin and 10 women from the inner city, and we sit them down to do a project together. Something, anything. Knit a blanket, I don't care what it is, right?
Smoke weed.
But smoke weed, come up, think of something. Do something together,
Yeah.
because when you work together, and I learned this from a group I was in called the Rites of Passage. When you work together with someone, you can learn a lot about them, especially if it's two opposing sides. You know, put them in a room and say, hey, get along. I need you to achieve this goal for the bigger picture. When those people emerge from that room, they've got new friends, new connections, new everything.
It makes the world so much bigger.
So much bigger and better.
Right.
And you know what? We would be killed on our feet if we don't give Kimmy a shout out. Hi, Kimmy! Kim Webb.
Oh, Kim. Oh, you said Kimmy. Okay.
Kim Webb.
Oh my God, she is the best harasser. She has
love her
sexually
to
harassed
pieces.
me for years. I love it.
Prior to me being in this movement, this Make Some Intelligent Noise movement that I started, and you know why, you know, as a mother of an incarcerated son.
And I hope he's okay. I hope he's well.
He is doing better. He's doing much better. He has a little touch of the flu or whatever, not corona, but thank God, but some sort of a cold or something. So I'm waiting to see how that's panning out before I move to the left or the right. But prior to me starting this movement, I gotta be honest, I didn't have a whole lot of white friends. I really didn't associate with a whole lot of white folks. You know, I had my own little corner of the world. I was a high school teacher, and I was picky and choosy about who I was going to be friends with, for my own prejudices and bigotries and fear.
Yeah.
Some of it was fear, because I'm black, and you can look at me and see that I'm a woman of color. When you see white people, we don't know who's a bigot. We have no idea what, you know, inside racism they may have or prejudices they may hold. So we don't know. So I think I might have had 2 white friends, you know, in my whole time until I started this movement. And Kim Webb was one of the first people that I reached out, and she reached out to me. I reached out to her, and we became friends. And there have been times when I've had to say to her, hey, Kim, I got to talk about some real shit on the radio today. And I want you to know that I love you, but I got to say it. And she's like, girl, you better tell the truth. She is so cool with the truth. She accepts it. She's like amazing. And we need more people to get into the position that Kimmy is in, that you are in, seeing us as humans, seeing us as people who maybe got a raw deal. You know, slavery, redlining, the Jim Crow laws, all of those things, you know, that kind of gave us a raw deal. We got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, and I think that you'll find that there's more of those good people, right, than there are of the hidden, you know, closet racists.
Right.
What the obstacle to overcome is making them number one, comfortable with just having that conversation, providing the place to do it, the venue, like to have like a mutual ground, right?
Right.
And you'll find that there's many more good than there are bad, for sure, because I've seen it. They just don't necessarily know how to do it. They don't know the right way to do it. Because you're right. Once you see each other as human, right, and not as the video clips or not as a statistic, then the world is beautiful. It becomes the difficulty too, and this is something I had to recognize, is that in order to get there, you have to accept human value, right? You have to accept that you have to see and feel empathy. When you feel empathy, what that allows you to do is, see this beautiful world and all of its color and brightness, but it also opens you up to feel the suffering and to feel the pain. Yeah. You have to be willing to accept both, because that is the human condition. And the fact that I went to a lot of these community meetings, especially when we started, Vash and I started a civic association in West Center City. They didn't have one.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it started at like 5 or 6 people. I would knock on people's doors, and now, of course, it's grown exponentially,
Yes,
right?
yes,
That's organizing, right?
Yes.
That's your word. So, but what I knew was going to happen, but still hurt, was people were angry. They weren't angry at me. They had years of just being frustrated with police.
Yes.
I accepted that, and I listened. I mean, I'm talking now, but I do know how to shut up and listen. It still was difficult to go home and kind of like warehouse all of that. But I knew they weren't mad at me.
Yes.
They were just, they hadn't had somebody just to speak to.
You're a refreshing shock to many of the brown communities, because I can tell you, when we see police officers, it's the enemy. They're coming to kill and destroy. Whatever they're doing in our community, they're coming to kill us or destroy us, take us to jail, separate families. The boys in blue are not our friend. And we raised our children on that. We didn't raise our kids. If you have a problem, go talk to Officer Joe.
Sad.
That's not how we raised our children. Unfortunately, because of our history with the police, and it's not even history anymore. I mean, Walter Wallace was just
it's weekly.
It's weekly. So it's too much of it, and so often we see the police as our enemy.
Yeah.
Sure, we want to call 911 if we hear a burglar coming in the window, but we prefer somebody to help us, because even if the police come to help, we don't know if they're going to turn around then and find a crime
because
on
they're
us.
Strangers.
Because they're strangers.
And
so that's the answer, is to get to know each other.
Yes.
Because we as people, as a brown woman, I am a brown woman. And
as am I.
And I live in a brown community. A police officer now parks right up on the corner from my house. And I've made it my business to go and say hello and exchange information and conversation with this particular.
Did they walk? Were they walking?
He's in his truck.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say too much about him, because I don't want the other police officers to recognize him. Because he is building a relationship with me. Like he's like this cool white guy. And I appreciate that. And I think that when my other neighbors ask me, what he talking about? What he say to you? What are you in trouble? As soon as you see the police, you think you're in trouble. So when I tell them, oh no, we're getting to know each other. We should make some cookies and share. I'm trying to build a relationship with him, so that if there's ever any trouble in my neighborhood, I can say, hey, officer, so-and-so, I can vouch for this kid, or I know that it was this. This is the situation. Here are the details to the situation. Building relationships is very, very important.
Yeah, it's what police have not done yet, right? So we want to jump, and politicians want to jump to how do we deal with juvenile violence? How do we deal with shootings? How do we deal with? Hold on a second. We haven't even introduced ourselves. We haven't met them yet. That's where it starts.
Yes.
With just, hi, I'm Dan.
Right.
Right? We haven't even introduced ourselves to them or their communities.
Yeah.
That is what's missing. I didn't want you to point out who the officer was. I was asking because the easiest way to do that is to get out of your police car. That police car is the single biggest reason that there is no connection between police and the community.
The car is in the way. Get out of the car.
How do you connect with somebody? Number one, when they're driving 30 miles per hour past you. Right. How do you patrol a community, especially an urban community, in your car?
Right.
Again, police have created some of that because of the history. It came from it went from using your car just to get you from here to there to now they have all of their equipment. They're taught to do their reports. Yes. And then we put GPS in their car and we've scared the hell out of them and say, we're going to watch you. And so they perceive distance and coverage of their assignments as good policing. It is the opposite. If you park your car and it has 2 miles on it, but you walk the whole time, that's a success.
Yes.
But that's our failure in law enforcement, not to explain that.
You know what? The next time he pulls up on the corner, and he does it pretty much every other day or so, he's there, checking things out. I'm going to tell him to get on out the car Get on out the car and come on and sit down and talk with us. And I'll take my neighbors over there with us.
And yeah, you provide the opportunity, right? That's going to be a little uncomfortable maybe for both of you.
Yeah.
But it provides the opportunity. I wouldn't say, like, my suggestion is to say, hey, can we walk the block?
Yeah.
And I want to show you. Show you, right?
Yes.
It's remember, cops are mission oriented. They're like,
Yes.
all right, well, I'm going to walk the block.
Right.
What happens when they walk the block is they start to understand, right? They start to meet people and connect with people. Once you start connecting with people, you start understanding value.
Yes.
You start understanding who lives here. You're not a stranger anymore.
And that is what we got to get to.
Yes.
I'll tell you, Lieutenant Dan,
I feel like we should have some amen. We should have a church choir. Hallelujah. Or some Jewish stuff for my Jewish friends.
Yes, yes. Time goes so fast, though. We never have enough time to finish our conversations, but I think that here today, there has been a meeting of the minds, as always, between you and I. And I certainly pray you the very best success. I want to see you back here. I want you to come and talk to us again and let us know if there's an opportunity arises for you to become that trainer, you know, and I certainly will advocate for that. I'd love to see you in that position. I think you would do very well right here in Wilmington, Delaware. Why should Wilmington lose you to Philadelphia when you can do so much good right here with us? So you've been listening to Lieutenant Dan, former Wilmington Police Department lieutenant, now citizen, and we didn't even find out what you're doing now. Oh my God, we talked so much, we didn't find out what you're doing right now. Tell us real quick, we have like 2 minutes and then we've got
to go. I started my own consulting company called Community Navigators, and essentially I work projects for both the private and public sector, connecting services to those who desperately need it. So even like the van, for instance, in front of the Gander Hill, that was my project.
Awesome.
Some other projects have kind of included the same theme, which is how do you get these people who have the resources, the support, to connect directly to the people on the block, the people who need it most. And that's kind of where that space that I put myself in.
Is there an email address or a way that someone could reach you?
Yeah, I'm probably the easiest person to connect with.
Well, we know who you are over on the west side.
Certainly, email, but I think everyone has my phone number, but my phone number is 302-897-7081. I'm happy to share or be a part of more conversations. And like this one, and I have to tell you, I honor and respect you and our friendship more than you know, and I mean it when I say that I'm sending your son prayers and thoughts and for a quick recovery.
Thank you.
I love you.
Thank you. We love you too. I can't wait for Justin to come home and meet you. I've fixed up his room through all this COVID-19 coronavirus. I've been just stuck in the house kind of, working.
Just tell him I'm white. It might be a shock.
Oh, he's going to love it. He's going to love it. I've been fixing up his room. So I've got this great room for him now, ready for him to come home. And I don't even know when the end is in sight, but I will definitely let him know about you. Yeah. I certainly will. And I thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to 95.3 FM. We are broadcasting to you from WHGE. You're listening to Lieutenant Dan Selekman, and of course, your hostess, your journalist, and your advocate, Rachelle Wilson, for Make Some Intelligent Noise. Until we get back together again, I'll say happy Biden-Harris. Congratulations, Biden-Harris, and we'll see you on the next go round. Remember, evil can only triumph when good men do nothing. Talk to you soon. Peace and grace.
We should have had that playing in the
background.
That's what we needed.
Wonderful.